Hello and welcome to New Central Studio, reaching you live from Lagos, Nigeria. My name is Felicity Eziwike. Here are some of the major stories beyond the skyline. Seychelles and Angola have signed an agreement for more cooperation in tourism, agriculture, education and several other fields. The first bilateral agreement between both countries was signed on Tuesday. General Cooperation Agreement provides a framework for bilateral cooperation between the two countries and indicates in which sectors and areas a bilateral joint commission will be established and will be responsible to discuss and monitor the implementations of specific cooperation between the two countries. The South African delegation to the Pan-African Parliament has condemned attempts by the Eastern and Western Caucasus to undermine the unity of the continent and implementing the resolution of the presidency of the Continental Parliament. Leader of the South African delegation to PAP, Amos Masondo, accused the Eastern and Western Caucasus of using their majority in the Continental Parliament to ensure only their candidates occupy the presidency. Masondo's allegations come on PAP holds fourth ordinary session of the Fifth Parliament in Midrand. Today's meeting was the fifth day of the session, which is scheduled until June 4. Ethiopia's Oromo Liberation Front is alleging that Eritrean troops operating in various parts of the Oromia and Benishangul Gumuz regional states. In a statement, the party describes the participation of Eritrean soldiers in the Tigray region as atrocious. The OLF also spoke of a secret agreement made between the Ethiopian ruling group and the Eritrean regime to deploy Eritrean forces to Oromia and Benishangul Gumuz regions. The party pressed the African Union and United Nations to push for the withdrawal of Eritrean forces from Oromia and called on the international community to pay due attention to the suffering of civilians in the region. Delegates from Liberia have concluded a three-day working visit to Sierra Leone, where they explored the adoption of best practices related to the management, control, development and maintenance of national road. Sierra Leone's National Road Fund says particular emphasis was placed on the toll system, helping to improve road management. The tour gave first-hand information on strategies employed by that country to fund more works related to rehabilitation, maintenance and construction of roads and bridges at national and local levels. Farmers in Orkney and Gabon have adopted gaming technology as part of an innovative project to assess how they deal with wildlife threats to their businesses. Researchers at the University of Stirling worked with farmers in Orkney and Gabon to assess how they make decisions when balancing biodiversity with food production. The farmers were made to play a game that asks them to choose whether to kill the wildlife, scare it away, or sacrifice some crops to allow the wildlife coexist on their lands. Lead researcher Professor Niels Bunsfield from the University of Stirling said the results provided an important insight into how farmers make decisions when balancing biodiversity with food production. The research was carried out in conjunction with the Gabon National Parks Agency. President Teodoro Obiang of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea has left Doha after an official visit to the country. The president and the accompanying delegation were seen off on Tuesday by the Minister of Municipality and Environment, Abdullah bin Abdulaziz bin Turki Al Sabia, and the ambassador non-resident of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea to the state of Qatar. A Rwandan YouTuber, Aimable Karasima, has been arrested on charges of denying the 1994 genocide. If found guilty, the former university lecturer could face more than a decade in jail. In a statement, the Rwanda Investigative Bureau said he had sown division in the country. Mr. Karasira was arrested following a video he posted last month where he accused the governing Rwandan Patriotic Front of fueling hate and questioned some aspects of the genocide. An opposition party has called for his immediate release. Botswana has become the first country in Southern Africa and the third on the continent to start using drones to deliver life-saving health supplies. The Drones for Health Innovation is aimed at reducing maternal mortality by delivering life-saving health supplies to hard-to-reach communities in a timely manner. The initiative has been made possible through a collaboration between Botswana Ministry of Health and Wellness, Botswana International University of Science and Technology, and the United Nations Population Fund. The Southern African country joins Ghana and Rwanda, where the US-based drone company Zipling has been delivering on-demand medical supplies to remote areas. The drone delivery ecosystem platform for Botswana, however, was developed in partnership with Dutch drone engineering company Abe. Botswana has banned the importation of South African red meat after an outbreak of highly contagious foot and mouth disease in northern KwaZulu-Natal. The Red Meat Producers Association said a ban on Namibian red meat is expected to follow soon. Secretary of the organization said this was the first outbreak since 2019, adding that it had not yet affected other provinces. She said the cost of the outbreak to the industry is not yet known because investigations are still ongoing to determine how many animals are affected and in which areas. The outbreak was announced by the Agriculture Minister last week, who said the disease was detected in Mtumba in our district municipality. When we return, we'll be joined by South African journalist and editor Diane Hawker for a look at some of the stories from Namibia and Zimbabwe. Just stay with us. We now take you to the southern part of the continent with our South African correspondent, Diane Hawker. The spat between Germany and Namibia has been heating up as the country's traditional leaders demand better compensation for genocide and colonial-era crimes. Now, human rights issues remain top on the mind in Zimbabwe as calls mount for the release of New York Times stringer Jeffrey Moyo. This comes as concerns grow over Zimbabwe's Chief Justice remaining in office beyond the original term limit. Diane, good to see you. Let's start with what's happening in Namibia.
Yes, absolutely. The Namibia situation is quite an interesting story because it actually is many decades in the making. We saw last week that the German government officially apologized for a genocide that took place in Namibia almost a century ago, between 1904 and 1908. And this was a time when Namibia was under the control of Germany. Many hundreds and thousands of people were killed in this genocide. But it's the first time that the country, a former colonial country, has actually acknowledged that it killed citizens of Namibia while trying to retain control over that state. A few years after that, 1915, it actually let go of Namibia, and we saw Namibia trying to gain independence for some time, as well as South Africa for a portion having control of that country before it eventually actually became a completely free and independent state. But what we've seen happening this week is after that acknowledgement from Germany, we've seen that many of those in Namibia have said that they are not happy with what the German government is offering as possible compensation. And the numbers are really important. They are offering 1.1 billion euros as a possible compensation for these years of genocide. And in fact, that comes to about 1.3 billion US dollars. Now, from those in the country, in particular, some of the chiefs of various tribes, they are saying that this compensation doesn't even come close to the kind of compensation that Germany should be offering. And they are actually wanting 8 trillion Namibian dollars, which translates to about $500 billion US dollars. Quite a significant difference in what is being offered by Germany. And they're actually saying that in addition to making this money available to the state, that there should be direct compensation to the tribes that were directly affected by this genocide, such as the Herero tribes and some of the other tribes within Namibia. So definitely a story that is still unfolding. While there is that initial compensation agreement that's been reached by the two states, many civil society groups saying that it simply isn't enough, particularly as a result of the long-term scars that were left by the practices of the German state. You're also talking about things like the remains of some people being taken to Germany and used in museums and experimentation. And there are questions about whether those remains will be returned to those families that have been affected. So quite a lot really to be expanded on and to be finalized in that regard. Another big story that is making headlines here in Southern Africa is the issue of the arrest of the journalist Jeffrey Moyo. He's a Zimbabwean journalist who is an international stringer. He writes for a number of publications, including the New York Times, which, as you know, is quite a well-known international publication. And he was arrested on the 26th of May. And the circumstances around his arrest is that the Zimbabwean government believes that he helped to get two other journalists into the country, as well as getting them work permits illegally. Now, the work of journalists in Zimbabwe is very regulated. They have a commission there that provides accreditation, and he's being charged with giving false accreditation to these two journalists from the New York Times. He's denied these allegations, and he's actually enlisted the services of a well-known human rights lawyer in Zimbabwe who has, helped to set up various cases and defenses for other people who've been arrested. He's also in support, for example, of Hopewell Chinono, another Zimbabwean journalist who was arrested a few months ago, also facing some allegations that haven't yet been proven in court. So a second arrest of a journalist there that has been made quite public. And what we're seeing is a number of organizations on the continent, including the South African National Editors Forum, as well as the Center for the Committee to Protect Journalists. Sorry, I just need to check my notes there. And they're an international organization that deals with issues like this across the world, because as you know, there are places where it is quite difficult to operate as a journalist, and Zimbabwe is one such place. Now, we saw Jeffrey Moyo appear in court. He hasn't yet been granted bail, but his lawyer has said that they'll continue to fight this matter to ensure that he actually gets bail.
Yeah, that's some good news at least. Let's hope that justice will be done in their cases. Thank you very much, Diane, for keeping us up to speed.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I know you still have other stories.
Oh, yes, and there is one more story, yes. Also related to Zimbabwe, one story that we're also keeping quite a close eye on is the Chief Justice in Zimbabwe. And now this is a situation that has been continuing to boil over after the president in Zimbabwe, President Emmerson Mnangagwa, has actually extended his term of office beyond what is currently allowed in Zimbabwean legislation and the constitution. Now we saw that some civil society organizations took that extension to court, and the High Court in Zimbabwe actually ruled that the extension was illegal. However, the Chief Justice has still been seen operating in office this week, and he has reportedly said to journalists, as well as in court papers, that he intends to continue with his work despite this court ruling. Other civil society organizations, as well as lawyers in Zimbabwe, have now returned to court to try and have him removed. Some are also requesting that the court actually have him jailed over defying the High Court order. And it obviously makes it quite difficult, because the judges who are ruling against the Chief Justice also in a way report to him. So there is some level of independence with those who have actually made that decision against him, but there are concerns with if he remains in office for longer, whether there will be that continued level of independence, or whether he will actually make sure that in some way the case goes in his favor. So that's something we'll definitely continue to keep a close eye on.
We'll definitely be circling back to you in no time. Thank you very much, as always.
Thank you.
And those were some of the major stories across the continent at this hour. We thank you very much for watching.